I sat frozen as my cousin thanked a stranger for the scholarship I secretly built. She smiled on that stage, claiming independence, while my name lived only in the legal registry. I stayed silent when she said she did it all alone. Then the foundation called my name, and the truth walked into the room before I ever had to. Applause cracked through the auditorium like sharp glass, loud, repetitive, hollow against the high ceiling of the Atlanta ballroom. Every clap bounced off the polished floors and into my chest. Then her voice filled the mic. Clear, confident, familiar. And I want to thank the foundation that believed in me. My fingers tightened around the donor card hidden inside my clutch. The projection screen lit up behind her. Grandma Lila Educational Scholarship. The name I registered. The name I built. The name she was now claiming. My cousin smiled under the stage lights like this moment belonged to her. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Nia. I'm 26 years old, and this is what really happened. The sound of camera shutters kept snapping like tiny fireworks. Phones lifted, flash after flash. Every click documented a lie I paid for. She stood center stage at Spelman's Donor Gala in Atlanta, holding the plaque with both hands. A navy velvet dress, perfect hair, soft glam makeup. She looked like a scholarship success story packaged for Instagram. And the worst part? She didn't look guilty. She looked proud. The host leaned into the microphone. This scholarship was awarded to a student who showed resilience, leadership, and financial need. My stomach twisted slowly, because every word of that criteria had come from my original proposal document, typed at 2:13 a.m. on a secondhand laptop, inside my one-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta. The applause swelled again, louder this time, warmer for her than it ever had been for me. I stayed seated, still, silent, invisible in the third row with a donor badge no one recognized. She lifted the plaque higher. I'm so grateful someone saw my potential when nobody else did. A few people sniffled. Someone behind me whispered, "That's beautiful." I pressed my tongue against the roof of my mouth. Metal taste, sharp and steady, because someone did see her potential. Me. 2 years ago, I was working 3 jobs. Day shift at a campus bookstore, evening freelance graphic design, night rideshare driving around Midtown. Sleep was a luxury, but purpose was louder. Grandma Lila used to say, education is the one thing nobody can repossess. That sentence never left me. After she passed, the family argued over jewelry and furniture. I kept her handwritten recipe book, and her church envelopes filled with small donation notes. $5, $10. Always labeled, for somebody's future. That stayed with me. So I started small. A savings account first, then a registered nonprofit shell, filed legally under Georgia nonprofit guidelines. County court record #2025 CV 11873, signed by Notary Public. I remember holding the stamped paperwork in my hands, my fingers shaking, my chest warm. Not because it was big, but because it was real. I didn't want attention. I wanted legacy. So I chose anonymity. No press, no donor spotlight, no family announcement, just a quiet scholarship fund named after the woman who raised half our family. Grandma Lila, the same name now glowing 10 feet behind my cousin's head. She laughed lightly on stage, soft, polished, performative. My family always believed in education, she said. I blinked slowly. That sentence landed harder than the applause, because growing up, she never believed in mine. At cookouts, she'd grab the mic for karaoke. At church events, she'd lead youth speeches. At family group chats, she was always the loudest voice. I was the quiet cousin, the serious one, the one people forgot to tag in photos. One Thanksgiving, she looked at my college acceptance letter and said, "Oh, community scholarships? That's cute. Cute. Not impressive, not inspiring, just cute." I never responded. I just kept working. Back in the ballroom, the host gestured toward the donor section. "We wish the anonymous founder could be here tonight." My heartbeat slowed. Not faster, slower. Because I was there, sitting quietly, breathing evenly. Watching the story rewrite itself in real time. My phone vibrated inside my clutch. One email notification from Atlanta Foundation Board, subject, donor acknowledgement, draft, confidential. I didn't open it yet. On stage, she wiped a single tear. Perfect timing, perfect angle for the cameras. I struggled financially, she continued, voice trembling just enough. This scholarship changed my life. A soft murmur spread across the audience. I stared at the edges of the plaque. Gold trim, matte finish, custom engraved. I approved that design. I paid for that design. I remember the vendor invoice, $187.42 after tax, charged to my nonprofit account at 11:48 p.m. The sound of the mic adjusting squeaked briefly. That tiny noise snapped me into memory. 2 months ago, scholarship application season. I reviewed every submission personally. Blind review process, names hidden, financial essays only. Until one essay stopped me. It talked about family pressure, about being underestimated, about wanting independence from relatives who see you as background. I reread it 3 times. Then I checked the applicant ID. My chest tightened. It was her, my cousin. She didn't know the donor identity. No one did. For a moment, I hovered over the selection file, cursor blinking, quiet, persistent. I could have disqualified her. Conflict of interest, family relation, perfectly valid reason. But fairness mattered more than ego. So I recused my vote, sent the file to the board panel, external review only, transparent process, documented decisions, archived digitally. If she won, she would win honestly. And she did. Back in the present. The audience rose for a standing ovation. The sound thundered now, heavy, echoing, almost celebratory. She pressed the plaque to her chest. I promise to honor whoever created this scholarship. That line almost made me laugh. Almost. Because honor isn't just about gratitude. It's about truth. A reflective thought crossed my mind quietly. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is evidence, waiting for the right room. The lights felt hotter now, warmer against my skin, my palms slightly damp against the leather clutch. Inside it sat 3 things: the donor card, the original incorporation certificate copy, and a USB drive, recorded board meetings, funding transfers, proposal drafts with timestamps, not for revenge, for accuracy. Because narratives get loud, but documents stay patient. She stepped down from the stage, walking toward the donor reception area. People hugged her, congratulated her, asked for selfies. My aunt rushed past my row, tears in her eyes. "That's my niece," she told a stranger proudly. I remained seated, still breathing evenly, still observing carefully. Another reflective line settled in my thoughts. Some people inherit applause. Others build the stage. A volunteer approached my seat, soft smile, clipboard in hand. "Are you with the donor list, ma'am?" I nodded once and showed my badge. Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, you're on the confidential registry." "Yes," I replied calmly. She lowered her voice. "The foundation director asked if the anonymous donor is attending tonight." I paused, then answered softly, "She is." The volunteer blinked, confused, curious, respectful. "Well, there's a private donor luncheon tomorrow afternoon." I finally opened the email on my phone. Subject line unchanged. Attachment included. Donor recognition adjustment, PR draft. I scanned the document slowly. And that's when I saw it. One small edit. My anonymity clause, removed, replaced with founder identity to be revealed during donor appreciation ceremony. My thumb froze above the screen. No one informed me. No approval request, no prior discussion. Just a quiet PR decision. Another internal line surfaced, firm and steady. Recognition delayed is not recognition denied. It is strategy waiting for timing. Across the room, my cousin laughed loudly with a donor couple. She didn't know. Not about the funding trail. Not about the nonprofit filings. Not about the legal registry bearing my signature. And definitely not about the silent seat 3 rows behind her. She glanced around briefly. Our eyes almost met. Then she looked away. Like always. Like I was background, like I was harmless, like I was quiet. And I stayed quiet. Not because I had nothing to say, but because tomorrow had a schedule, a boardroom, a documented registry, and a truth already notarized. The smell of shrimp and grits lingered in the hallway long after the applause faded. But I never went to the after party. Instead, I stepped outside into the humid Atlanta night. Warm air wrapped around my skin like a soft warning. Traffic hummed along Peachtree Street, distant horns, occasional laughter. City life moving forward like nothing had shifted. My Uber receipt buzzed into my email at 9:42 p.m. Pickup, Spelman College Ballroom. Drop-off, East Atlanta Village. I slid into the back seat and exhaled slowly. The driver glanced at me through the mirror. Long event? Yes, I said. Very long. He nodded like he understood more than I explained. Streetlights streaked across the window as the car moved. Gold, white, gold, white. Each flash reflected off the donor envelope still resting on my lap. Inside that envelope was the original founding letter. Dated, signed, notarized, archived. The driver's radio played low R&B soft. Familiar. Grounding. And for the first time that night, the silence felt like mine again. Because the truth was, this scholarship didn't start as a grand idea. It started as survival math. 2 years ago, my bank account balance was $312.17. Rent due in 6 days. Electric bill overdue. Student loan emails stacking like spam guilt. I worked at the campus bookstore from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. freelance logo design from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., then rideshare driving until midnight. Not glamorous, not inspirational, just consistent. One night after a 12-hour shift, I sat on my apartment floor eating instant noodles out of the pot. No table, no energy, just quiet. That's when I opened Grandma Leela's old recipe book. It still smelled faintly like cinnamon and vanilla, pages slightly worn, corners folded from years of use. Tucked between 2 pages was a church envelope, $10 written on the front in her handwriting. For somebody's future. I stared at that envelope longer than I expected. Then I whispered out loud, "What if I become that somebody for someone else?" The idea felt heavy at first, almost unrealistic. But small dreams grow best in quiet rooms. The next morning, I researched community scholarships, local grants, private donor funds, minority education initiatives, hours of reading, dozens of tabs open, coffee growing cold beside my laptop. Most scholarships were backed by corporations or wealthy alumni. I had neither, but I had consistency. So I created a plan, $50 a week, no matter what. Some weeks that meant skipping brunch. Some weeks that meant declining group trips. Some weeks that meant driving Uber until 1 a.m., my friends noticed. Friend, "Girl, you working again tonight?" Me, "Yeah, just stacking something real." They assumed I was saving for a car, or a better apartment, or maybe grad school. I never corrected them, because legacy doesn't need announcements. It needs structure. 3 months later, I opened a dedicated savings account. 6 months later, I consulted a legal aid clinic on nonprofit formation. Free appointment, 30 minutes. Life-changing information. The attorney adjusted her glasses and asked, "Do you want public donor recognition?" I shook my head immediately. "No, I want it anonymous." She raised a brow. "That's uncommon." I smiled softly. So is quiet impact. By month 8, I filed the nonprofit registration paperwork, digital forms, state processing fees, legal review. When the confirmation email arrived, I just stared at the screen. Approved. Not celebrated. Not announced. Just real. My apartment that night felt different. Still small, still modest, but purposeful. The scholarship name was the easiest decision of the entire process. Lila Mae Grant. Named after the woman who packed school lunches for cousins that weren't even hers. The woman who believed education was protection. The woman who never had the chance to attend college herself. I built the scholarship criteria carefully. Financial need, academic commitment, community involvement, first-generation preference. No family favoritism clause, strict conflict of interest policy, external board voting, transparent, ethical, documented. Every line written at my kitchen counter under warm yellow lighting. My fingers would ache from typing, my shoulders stiff from long nights. But my mind stayed clear. Because this wasn't about recognition. It was about correction. Correction for every time our family said, college is too expensive. Just figure it out. You're the quiet one, you'll manage. Quiet people manage. But we also remember. Around month 12, the fund finally crossed its first real milestone, $8,000. I didn't scream, I didn't post. I just sat on my couch and let the number exist. A reflective thought surfaced gently. Power built slowly is harder to take away. That same week, the Atlanta Foundation Partnership Program accepted my scholarship proposal. Formal email, official letterhead, institutional legitimacy. I read the acceptance email 5 times before replying. Professional tone, neutral language, donor anonymity reaffirmed in writing. Then came the application portal launch. Dozens of submissions, personal essays, financial disclosures, dreams formatted into PDF files. Late one night, I was reviewing essays in bed, laptop balanced on my knees. Rain tapped lightly against my window. Soft, rhythmic, calming. Then I opened application hash 117. The writing style felt familiar immediately, confident but slightly performative, emotional but strategically phrased. Halfway through the essay, my breath slowed. Growing up, I always had to shine without support. I blinked, then scrolled to the applicant details. Name, Amara Johnson, my cousin. My chest didn't tighten. It steadied. Because the irony wasn't loud, it was precise. And she wrote about financial hardship, academic ambition, family pressure, all valid, all real. But she never mentioned me. Not once. Not the cousin who helped edit her first college essay. Not the cousin who loaned her money for textbooks sophomore year. Not the cousin quietly funding the scholarship she was applying for. I leaned back slowly, laptop glow reflecting across my ceiling, rain still tapping the glass. I whispered to myself, this process has rules, and rules protect integrity. So I followed them, immediately flagged conflict of interest, removed myself from the voting panel, submitted documentation to the board. Email subject, recusal notice, applicant hash 117, professional, ethical, clean. The board handled the evaluation independently. Blind scoring system, financial verification, academic review. Weeks passed. No interference from me, no hidden influence, no emotional override. Then the final results email arrived. Selected recipient, application hash 117, Amara Johnson. I closed my laptop slowly. Not angry, not shocked. Just aware of the narrative symmetry. She had earned it fairly, and fairness mattered more than ego. Another reflective line settled quietly. Justice without integrity is just performance. Back in the Uber, the driver pulled up to my apartment complex. Warm air still thick outside, distant bass from a nearby apartment party, laughter drifting across the parking lot. I stepped out, clutch still in hand. The envelope felt heavier now, not physically, symbolically. Inside my apartment, the air conditioning hummed softly, cool air brushing against my arms. I placed the donor envelope on my kitchen counter, right next to my nonprofit binder. Then my phone lit up. Instagram notification, tagged photo, so grateful for this opportunity, hash scholarship winner. It was her, standing on stage, holding the plaque, smiling wide. Caption, when nobody supports you, God sends strangers. My jaw tightened slightly, not in rage, in realization, because I wasn't a stranger. I was the invisible structure behind her spotlight, and she truly didn't know, which made the betrayal quieter, more complex, almost accidental. But accidental erasure still leaves a mark. My email refreshed again. New message from the foundation director. Dear anonymous founder, due to recent PR adjustments, we would like to formally recognize your contribution at tomorrow's donor appreciation luncheon. My eyes lingered on one sentence. Public acknowledgement pending final approval. I slowly closed the email, Then opened my nonprofit binder. Tabs neatly labeled incorporation, funding transfers, board agreements, donor charter. Every document dated, every page notarized, every transaction traceable. I ran my fingers across the paper edges. Smooth, structured, real. And for the first time since the ceremony, I allowed myself one quiet truth. She didn't steal the scholarship. She inherited the silence I created. But tomorrow, silence would have a witness. Sunlight slid through my blinds in thin golden lines the next morning. Soft, warm, deceptively peaceful. Atlanta mornings always felt gentler than the nights before them. Like the city gave you one quiet hour to gather yourself before reality resumed. My phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m. family group chat, 23 new messages. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I walked to the kitchen barefoot. Tile cool against my feet, coffee maker humming softly as it brewed. The smell of dark roast filled the air slowly. Rich, grounded, familiar. Then my phone buzzed again, and again, and again. I finally tapped the group chat. A flood of photos loaded instantly. Stage photos, plaque close-ups, video clips of her speech. Aunt Rochelle. Look at our girl. So proud. Mom. Scholarship queen. Grandma would be smiling down. Cousin Trey. Hard work pays off. Then her message appeared. Amara. God really made a way for me. I did this on my own. I stared at that sentence longer than the others. Not dramatic, not aggressive, just precise. On my own. My coffee machine clicked off behind me, steam rising in soft curls. I poured the cup slowly, hands steady, because emotional reactions are loud. Documentation is quiet. Another message popped up. Amara. Anonymous donors really be changing lives far. A small exhale left my nose. Not anger. Not yet. Just recognition. She truly believed that donor was a stranger, which meant this wasn't a calculated lie. It was a public narrative built on incomplete truth. I set my coffee beside my nonprofit binder, then opened Instagram. Her post from last night had already crossed 2,300 likes. Comments filled with heart emojis, church friends, college friends, extended relatives. One comment read, "You did this with no help. That's real strength." She liked it. Immediately. My thumb hovered over the screen, then locked my phone without commenting, because online corrections rarely restore dignity. They just create spectacle. And spectacle was never my goal. The air conditioner hummed softly overhead, cool air brushing against my shoulders as I leaned against the counter. Memories started surfacing quietly. Not from last night, from years ago. Family cookouts in Decatur, plastic chairs, charcoal smoke, loud music, kids running, adults debating, plates stacked high. Amara always held the loudest laugh. She had presence, confidence, natural attention. I had observation. One summer, I brought my acceptance letter to the cookout. Printed, folded carefully, slightly creased from being read too many times. I handed it to my aunt first. She skimmed it and smiled politely. "That's nice, baby." Then Amara glanced over my shoulder. "Oh, a local scholarship?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She shrugged lightly. "That's cute. Every little bit helps." Cute. Not impressive. Not admirable. Just manageable. I didn't argue. I just folded the letter back and sat quietly near the cooler. Another memory surfaced. Hair salon day. The smell of pressing oil and hairspray thick in the air. Blow dryers roaring like engines. Stylist. "So what you studying again, Nia?" "Me. Nonprofit management and design." Before the stylist could respond, Amara chimed in from the chair beside me. "She's always doing quiet stuff," she laughed. "Low-key projects and spreadsheets." Everyone chuckled softly. Not malicious, just dismissive. And dismissal, when repeated, becomes identity in people's eyes. Back in my apartment, I sipped my coffee slowly. Warm, bitter, centering. My email notification chimed again. Atlanta Foundation, reminder, Donor Appreciation Luncheon. Location, Foundation Conference Hall, downtown Atlanta. Time, 1 p.m. dress code, business formal. I set the phone down, then walked to my closet. Fabric brushed softly against my fingers as I scanned hangers. Cotton, linen, blazers, neutral tones. I selected a structured ivory blazer. Clean lines, minimal statement. Professional. Not flashy. Not loud. Intentional. Because today wasn't about emotion. It was about record alignment. My laptop screen glowed as I opened the nonprofit folder again. Digital archives neatly organized, incorporation certificate, initial funding transfer logs, board voting minutes, donor anonymity agreement, every timestamp visible, every signature authenticated. One file sat at the top. Original Scholarship Charter, Lila Mae Grant. I clicked it open. The document filled the screen in calm black text. Founder, anonymous, private registry. Purpose, educational advancement for financially constrained students in Atlanta metro area. Naming justification, in honor of Lila Mae Johnson, our shared last name. Another reflective thought surfaced quietly. Legacy is not always loud. Sometimes it is legally documented. My phone rang suddenly. Caller ID. Mom. I answered after 2 rings. Hey, Mom. Her voice came through bright and emotional. Nia, did you see Amara's speech? Baby, that girl was glowing. I saw it, I replied calmly. She said nobody supported her, and she still pushed through. That's strength, Mom continued. I leaned against the counter. Careful with my tone, measured with my breath. She worked hard, I said, which was true. Hard work and incomplete narratives can coexist. Mom sighed softly. You should call her. Congratulate her. Family support matters. A small pause filled the line. Then I answered gently, I will, after today. She didn't question it. Okay, baby, I'm proud of both of y'all in different ways. That sentence lingered after the call ended. Different ways, invisible ways, structured ways. By 11:40 a.m., I was seated at my desk with everything prepared. Leather folder, USB drive. Printed notarized documents. I checked each item twice. Not out of paranoia, out of precision. Because truth deserves organization. My phone buzzed again. Direct message from Amara. I opened it slowly. Amara. Hey, cousin. Did you see the ceremony last night? 3 exclamation marks, bright tone, unaware energy. I stared at the typing bar for a few seconds, then replied, Me. Yes, I watched. Her response came instantly. Amara, crazy how life works, right? A random donor changed everything for me. Random, I placed the phone face down on the desk. Not out of anger, out of clarity. She wasn't lying intentionally. She was speaking from the version of reality she had been given. And the Foundation's PR team had reinforced that version publicly, which meant the issue was no longer just personal. It was institutional. My Uber notification appeared at 12:18 p.m., driver arriving in 4 minutes. I grabbed my folder and stood. The weight of it felt steady in my hands. Not heavy, not light, just grounded. Outside, the afternoon air was warmer than the night before. Sun brighter. Sky clear. City noise louder. As the Uber merged into downtown traffic, glass buildings reflected sunlight across the streets. Tall, structured, official, very different from the ballroom glamour of last night. Today's location wasn't a stage, it was a conference hall. And conference halls respect documents more than applause. My phone buzzed one last time before arrival. Instagram notification. Amara had posted a new story. Text overlay? From overlooked to chosen. God's timing is perfect. I watched the story once, then closed the app. Another quotable line settled firmly in my mind. Being overlooked is painful. Being erased is strategic. The car stopped in front of the Atlanta Foundation building. Cool air rushed against my skin as I stepped inside. Marble floors, muted conversations, soft instrumental music playing overhead, professional environment, controlled atmosphere, documentation-friendly space. The receptionist looked up and smiled. Welcome. Name, please? I met her eyes calmly. Nia Johnson, I said, and I'm here regarding the private donor registry. Her expression shifted instantly. Recognition, respect, professional alertness. Yes, Miss Johnson, the director is expecting you. As she handed me the visitor badge, my fingers brushed the smooth plastic surface. Cold, firm, official. And in that moment, one final realization became clear. Last night was her spotlight. Today was my record. The conference room air felt colder than the lobby, not freezing, just controlled. Like every temperature setting in the building was designed to keep emotions steady and voices professional. The door closed softly behind me. Muted click, thick carpet under my heels, long glass table reflecting the overhead lights in smooth, sterile lines. 3 people were already seated. Foundation director, legal compliance officer, public relations coordinator. Folders stacked neatly in front of them, water glasses untouched, pens aligned with quiet precision. The director stood first and extended his hand. "Ms. Johnson, thank you for coming on such short notice." His handshake was firm but measured. "I appreciate the invitation," I replied calmly, taking my seat. The chair fabric was textured, slightly rough against my palms as I placed my folder down. Grounding. The PR coordinator smiled politely. "We want to begin by saying how grateful we are for your contribution to the Lila May Grant." I nodded once. Gratitude before clarification. Standard institutional cadence. The legal officer opened a file and adjusted her glasses. "We also want to address the donor anonymity clause." There it was. Direct, efficient, professional. I folded my hands on the table. "I noticed the clause removal in the revised PR draft," I said. "No accusation, no raised tone, just fact alignment." The PR coordinator exhaled slightly. "Yes, after the ceremony footage gained traction online, our team made a visibility adjustment to highlight donor impact. Visibility adjustment, corporate phrasing for narrative shift." "And that adjustment was made without donor approval?" I asked. The legal officer spoke this time. "It was processed under discretionary promotional authority, but only for recognition purposes, not misrepresentation." I slid my folder across the table slowly, leather brushing against glass with a soft, deliberate sound. "Then we should align on what constitutes misrepresentation," I said. The director glanced at the folder. "May we?" "Yes." He opened it carefully. Inside, incorporation certificate, funding ledger, scholarship charter, anonymity agreement copy, each page tabbed, each signature visible, each date highlighted. The room grew quieter, but not tense. Focused. Paper turned, pen taps paused, eyes scanning lines instead of faces. The legal officer stopped on page 3. "Original donor agreement, section 4.2, identity confidentiality unless express written consent." She looked up. "You did not provide consent." "No," I replied. Her pen stopped moving completely. Silence didn't feel empty in that room. It felt documented. The director leaned back slightly. "To be clear, Ms. Johnson, are you stating that the public narrative presented at last night's gala was incomplete?" I held his gaze. "Yes." Measured breath, steady posture. "Not false," I continued, "but incomplete." The PR coordinator shifted in her seat. "We never attributed the scholarship to any specific family member or individual publicly." "That is correct," I said. Then I tapped the printed gala transcript I had brought. "But the recipient publicly stated she succeeded on her own and that a stranger donor funded her opportunity." The legal officer read the highlighted line, then flipped to the next page. "That statement was not issued by the foundation," she noted. "Agreed," I said calmly. The director folded his hands. "Then what outcome are you seeking today?" A fair question. A strategic question. Not emotional. Procedural. I reached into my folder and placed a USB drive on the table. Small, black, unassuming. "This contains archived board communications, funding transfers, and proposal drafts establishing the origin and intent of the Lila May Grant," I explained. The USB drive made a faint tap sound against the glass surface. Precise? Audible? Final. The legal officer picked it up gently. "We will log this into our registry system." "Thank you," I replied. Another reflective line surfaced in my mind. Truth presented calmly travels farther than truth shouted emotionally. The director studied me for a moment. "You attended the ceremony last night," he said. "Yes." "And chose not to publicly intervene." "Yes." The PR coordinator leaned forward slightly. "May I ask why?" I answered without hesitation. "Because public interruption would have created spectacle, not correction." A small pause followed. Then the legal officer nodded once. That is a remarkably restrained decision. I didn't smile. Restraint wasn't weakness. It was timing. The director opened another file. Our records confirm that 100% of the scholarship fund originated from your registered nonprofit account, he said. He turned the document toward me. Highlighted bank transfer logs, dates matching my archives exactly, document symmetry, professional validation. And the scholarship naming justification references your grandmother, Lila Mae Johnson, he added. Yes. The PR coordinator blinked slowly. So the recipient is a direct family member of the namesake? Yes. And she was unaware of your donor identity? Yes. Each answer landed quietly, firm, controlled, undeniable. The legal officer closed the file. This introduces a reputational sensitivity layer, she stated. Institutional language for emotional fallout. I nodded slightly. I understand. The director exhaled slowly. Miss Johnson, had you wished, you could have publicly claimed authorship last night. I could have, I said, but authorship without documentation invites debate. The room went still for a brief second. Then the legal officer gave a small approving nod. That is legally accurate. The PR coordinator glanced at her tablet. The recipient's speech clip has surpassed 50,000 views across social media platforms. Viral traction, narrative momentum, public perception forming in real time. And the caption framing her as entirely self-made is gaining engagement, she added. I folded my hands again. I am not disputing her hard work, I said. Another pause. Important distinction. I'm addressing narrative ownership, I finished. That sentence lingered in the room longer than any raised voice could have. The director tapped his pen lightly against the table. If we proceed with formal donor recognition at the luncheon today, your identity will become public record within our institutional communications. I am aware, I said. And I am prepared. He studied me carefully. No emotional reservations. A slight inhale. Then honesty. Personal emotions exist, I said, but this meeting is about institutional accuracy. The legal officer closed her folder with a soft thud. From a compliance standpoint, public acknowledgement is not only appropriate, she said, it is necessary. The PR coordinator straightened in her chair. We would frame it as honoring the anonymous founder who chose privacy until now. I tilted my head slightly. I did not choose visibility, I corrected gently. You scheduled it. A brief silence. Then the director nodded. Fair clarification. He opened his calendar. The donor appreciation luncheon begins at 1 p.m. in the main hall. My phone buzzed lightly inside my blazer pocket. One message preview appeared on the lock screen. Amara, they said donors might be there today. I'm so nervous, LOLL. I locked the screen again without responding. The director continued. At the midpoint of the luncheon, we traditionally recognize major contributors. He paused. In light of these documents, we will formally acknowledge you as the founding donor of the Lila Mae Grant. No dramatic music. No spotlight yet. Just procedural confirmation, which felt heavier than applause. The legal officer slid a document toward me. Revised recognition authorization form. I scanned the lines carefully. Clear language, accurate attribution, no narrative embellishment. I picked up the pen. Ink flowed smoothly across the page as I signed. Date, signature, printed name, legally aligned, officially sealed. The legal officer stamped the form. Notary seal imprinting the paper with a firm, audible press. Documentation complete. Another quotable thought settled firmly inside me. Recognition is not revenge. It is record correction. The director stood. We will proceed accordingly, Miss Johnson. I rose as well, chair fabric brushing softly behind me. Professional posture, steady breathing, clear mind. As I reached the door, the PR coordinator spoke gently. One final question. I turned slightly. Yes? Do you anticipate a personal confrontation from the recipient once your identity is revealed? I paused for exactly one breath, then answered calmly. She will not be confronting a stranger. My hand rested on the door handle, cool metal against my palm. She will be confronting the cousin she publicly forgot. And with that, I stepped out into the hallway, where the luncheon guests were already beginning to arrive. The luncheon hall felt warmer than the conference room, not just in temperature, in atmosphere. Soft jazz floated through the air from hidden speakers, blending with low conversations and the clink of silverware against porcelain plates. Round tables filled the room, white tablecloths, gold centerpieces, name cards placed with careful intention. My heels pressed lightly into the carpet as I walked in. Each step steady, measured, controlled. A staff member greeted me near the entrance. "Miss Johnson, your seat is at the donor table." Donor table. The phrase landed differently now. Not symbolic, not private, official. I nodded and followed her across the hall. The scent of roasted chicken, fresh rolls, and brewed tea hovered in the air. Comforting. Familiar. Almost disarming. Then I saw her. Amara. Seated 3 tables ahead. Laughing with 2 foundation volunteers. Plaque resting beside her chair like a visible trophy of last night's narrative. She looked radiant, relaxed, unaware. My chest didn't tighten. It steadied. Because today wasn't about catching her off guard. It was about allowing truth to arrive on schedule. I took my seat quietly. The chair cushion was soft beneath me. Fabric cool against my palms as I placed my folder beside my plate. A printed program sat at each setting. I picked mine up. Schedule, welcome address, donor recognition segment, scholarship impact stories, closing remarks. My eyes paused on one line. Donor recognition segment, 1:32 p.m., time-stamped truth. My phone buzzed lightly against the table. Amara, "Girl, are you here? They said donors are attending and I'm stressed." I stared at the message, then typed slowly. Me. "Yes, I'm here." 3 dots appeared instantly. Amara. "Wait, what? Since when you come to these events?" I didn't respond. Not yet. Across the room, the foundation director stepped onto the small stage. A gentle tap on the microphone echoed through the hall. Conversations softened, chairs shifted, attention redirected forward. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began. His voice was warm but professional. Trained for rooms like this. Rooms where perception and policy met politely. "We are honored to celebrate the impact of educational philanthropy in the Atlanta community." Applause followed, polite, expected, structured. My fingers rested lightly on the edge of the table, smooth linen texture grounding me in the moment. Amara leaned toward one of the volunteers and whispered something. They both giggled softly, still relaxed, still unaware. The director continued. "This year, the Lila Mae Grant has already begun changing lives." My name for the scholarship floated through the room again. But this time, it didn't feel stolen. It felt pending. A server placed iced tea beside my plate, condensation beading along the glass, cool droplets sliding slowly downward. Temperature contrast. Inside, calm. Outside, anticipation. The director invited the first speaker to share a scholarship testimony. A previous recipient walked up. Grateful, emotional, genuine. "I wouldn't be in school without this fund," she said. That line settled softly in my chest, because impact was always the true goal. Not credit, not applause, not validation, impact. Between speeches, quiet conversations resumed around the room. A woman at my table leaned closer. "Are you part of the foundation?" she asked politely. "In a way," I replied. She smiled. "The Lila Mae Grant is beautifully structured. The eligibility criteria is unusually fair." I nodded slightly. Fairness was intentional. She didn't question further. Professional spaces often recognize quiet authority without needing full explanations. At 1:29 p.m., the director returned to the stage. My pulse didn't spike. It aligned. He adjusted his notes carefully. "Before we conclude today's program, we would like to recognize a contributor whose generosity has remained private until now." A subtle shift moved through the room. Forks paused midair. Chairs adjusted. Curiosity awakened. Amara straightened in her seat. Her eyes scanned the donor tables. Searching. Expecting. The director continued calmly. "The Lila Mae Grant was not created by a corporate sponsor, nor by an institutional endowment." Murmurs began. Soft, curious, controlled. He glanced toward the legal officer seated near the stage, then back to the audience. It was founded by an individual donor who chose anonymity out of respect for legacy rather than recognition. My hands remained still on the table. Breathing steady. Posture composed. Across the room, Amara's smile faded slightly. Confusion replacing confidence. The director lifted a document. After formal review of notarized records, funding ledgers, and original charter filings, paper rustled softly as he turned the page. The Foundation is honored to formally acknowledge the founding donor of the Lila May Grant. Silence spread. Not dramatic, not loud, just focused. My name badge rested lightly against my blazer. Cool metal touching fabric. Then he said it. Miss Nia Johnson. The room shifted. Heads turned, eyes searched. Attention redirected in waves. Not explosive, not chaotic, just unmistakable. I stood slowly, chair legs brushing against carpet with a soft, grounded sound. Every movement deliberate, every breath measured. Amara's eyes locked onto me. At first, confusion, then recognition, then something deeper, disbelief. The director gestured gently toward the stage. I walked forward, heels quiet against the carpet, step steady. No rush, no hesitation. Soft jazz still played faintly in the background, almost surreal against the weight of the moment. I reached the stage. The microphone stood at chest height, untouched, waiting. The director spoke again. Miss Johnson legally registered and funded the Lila May Grant through her nonprofit initiative, documented under verified county records and notarized agreements. He handed me a recognition plaque. Heavier than the one Amara received last night. Not in design, in meaning. Applause began. Slower at first, then stronger, then sustained. Not louder than last night's applause, but more informed. I didn't speak immediately. I simply looked across the room, and my eyes met hers again. Amara sat frozen, hands still on the table, plaque beside her untouched, expression unraveling in real time. Not humiliation. Realization. Another reflective line formed quietly within me. Truth does not need volume. It needs timing and records. The director leaned slightly toward the mic. For 2 years, miss. Johnson requested complete anonymity to honor her grandmother's legacy, Lila May Johnson, whose name this grant carries. A ripple moved through the audience. Whispers, soft gasps, connecting dots, legacy revealed, lineage clarified, narrative corrected. I finally stepped closer to the microphone. My voice came out calm, even, clear. I never intended for this to be public, I said. No tremor, no theatrics. I only intended for it to be real. The hall remained quiet, listening, processing. I did not fund this scholarship for recognition, I continued. I funded it because educational access should not depend on visibility. A pause, measured, intentional. And the recipient earned her selection through a fair, independent review process. That sentence landed carefully. Protective, accurate, dignified. Across the room, Amara blinked rapidly. Her fingers slowly curled around the edge of her plaque. The applause resumed, stronger this time. Not for spectacle, for documentation. And as I stepped away from the microphone, one thing became undeniable. Her story hadn't been destroyed, but it had just been rewritten in front of everyone. The air in the hall shifted after the applause faded. Not louder, not colder. Just heavier, with awareness. Conversations resumed, but differently now. Lower voices, slower tones, like everyone was recalibrating the story they thought they understood. I stepped down from the stage with the plaque held lightly against my side. The metal edge felt cool through my fingers. Solid, grounded, undeniable. A few donors approached me immediately. Miss Johnson, your structure is remarkable, one man said, extending his hand. Thank you, I replied. Another woman leaned in slightly. You stayed anonymous for 2 years? She asked. Yes. She blinked, impressed, rather than shocked. That level of restraint is rare. I offered a small, polite nod. Restraint had never felt rare to me. It felt necessary. Across the room, I could feel her eyes on me, even without looking. That familiar pull of attention, Not loud, but direct. My phone buzzed against the table as I returned to my seat. Amara, Nia, is this some kind of joke? I didn't respond. Not yet. A second message arrived almost instantly. Amara, you funded the scholarship? 3 question marks. Urgent, disoriented, unfiltered. I placed my phone face down beside my iced tea. Condensation from the glass had formed a small ring on the tablecloth. Circular, quiet, temporary, much like assumptions. The director resumed light closing remarks on stage, but the audience's attention was fractured now. Glances still drifted toward me. Whispers passed discreetly between tables. Not gossip. Context exchange. Professional curiosity more than drama. A foundation volunteer approached carefully. Miss Johnson, the media liaison, asked if you'd be open to a brief quote for the foundation newsletter. I shook my head gently. No media quotes today. She nodded immediately. Understood. We'll respect that. Respect felt different when documentation backed your presence. I finally allowed myself to look across the room. Amara was no longer laughing. Her shoulders were tense, her posture stiff. Her gaze fixed directly on me. The plaque in front of her looked smaller now. Not physically, narratively. She stood abruptly, her chair legs scraped softly against the carpet. A subtle sound, but noticeable. Then she started walking toward my table, each step slower than usual, measured, hesitant, processing. A few guests glanced up as she passed. Recognition flickered in their eyes. Recipient, founder, family, all pieces aligning in real time. She stopped beside my chair. Up close, her makeup was still flawless, but her expression wasn't. Can we talk? She asked quietly. Her voice was lower than I'd ever heard it, stripped of stage confidence. I met her gaze calmly. Yes. We walked toward a quieter corner near the side windows. Sunlight streamed in through the glass, bright but softened by sheer curtains. City traffic hummed faintly outside, distant, continuous, unbothered. She crossed her arms slowly. You funded the Lila May grant, she said. Not a question this time, a realization. Yes, I answered. A long pause stretched between us. Her eyes searched my face like she was trying to locate a version of me she had never examined closely before. Since when? She asked. 2 years ago. Her lips parted slightly. 2 years? Yes? She let out a short breath. Not dramatic, just stunned. I thought it was some foundation donor. Or a corporation, she admitted. I know. Her brows pulled together. Why didn't you tell anyone? The question hung between us like suspended weight. Because the scholarship was never meant to be about me, I said. She shook her head slowly. But you sat there last night, she continued, voice tightening, while I gave that whole speech. Yes. And you said nothing. Yes. Her laugh came out softly, disbelieving, slightly shaky. You let me think a stranger donor, when it was you. I held her gaze without flinching. You believed the donor was a stranger, I said calmly. I didn't correct you publicly because the ceremony was about the recipients, not the founder. That sentence landed deeper than confrontation ever could. She looked down at her plaque, then back at me. My essay, she whispered. You read it, didn't you? Yes. And you still let me win? I recused myself from the selection process, I replied. The board chose independently. Her eyes widened. So you didn't influence anything? No. Another long silence followed. Not hostile, not loud, just heavy with reassembled truth. A reflective thought settled in my mind. Fairness is the quietest form of power. She pressed her lips together. I said I did it on my own, she murmured. Yes. I posted it everywhere. Yes. I told people nobody helped me. Her voice cracked slightly on that last sentence. Not performative, not staged, just human. I didn't interrupt her, because realization, when uninterrupted, reaches deeper. She looked toward the stage where the foundation banner still displayed the scholarship name. Lila May, she said softly. That's Grandma's name. Yes. Her eyes snapped back to me. You named it after her? Yes. The silence that followed was different from all the others. Not shock, not confusion. Recognition. Real recognition. I thought you just worked quiet jobs and kept to yourself, she admitted. I didn't respond immediately, because that assumption had existed for years. Hair salons, cookouts, group chats, side comments wrapped in laughter. You always made me feel like the background cousin, she added quietly. I tilted my head slightly. I never positioned you as background, I said. I just never competed for the spotlight. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. That speech last night, she began, then stopped. Yes, I said gently. I wasn't trying to erase anyone, she continued quickly. I genuinely thought the donor was anonymous and distant. I understand. She studied my face carefully. You're not angry, she said. It wasn't a question. It was confusion. I am precise, I replied. She blinked. Precise? Yes. A small pause. I corrected the record, I added. Not revenge, not accusation. Correction. Her grip tightened around the edge of her plaque. You could have exposed me publicly, she said quietly. Like, right on stage last night. I could have. But you didn't. No, she swallowed slowly. Why? I answered without raising my voice. Because humiliation is loud. Documentation is lasting. That line stayed between us. Heavy, unavoidable, clear. She looked down again. I feel stupid, she whispered. I shook my head once. You were uninformed, I said. There is a difference. Her eyes shimmered slightly. And the scholarship? You're still funding it? Yes. For future students too? Yes. A deeper silence followed. Not tense, not defensive, reflective. Then she asked the one question that truly mattered. Why me? Her question stayed suspended between us. Why me? Not accusatory, not defensive, just raw and unfiltered. The sunlight near the window fell across her face unevenly, half warm, half shadowed, like the truth had finally found its angle. I didn't answer immediately, because the real answer wasn't simple, and simplicity often distorts intention. You weren't chosen because you're my cousin, I said calmly. You were chosen because your application qualified. She blinked slowly. But out of hundreds? She pressed. Yes. Her grip on the plaque loosened slightly. I didn't even know it was your scholarship when I applied, she whispered. I know. And if you knew it was me, she paused. Why didn't you disqualify my application? I folded my hands lightly in front of me. Because that moment 2 months ago still lived clearly in my memory. I flagged the conflict of interest the same night I saw your name, I explained. I removed myself from the voting panel and submitted a recusal notice to the board. Her brows pulled together. You stepped out of the decision? Yes. So the board picked me without your influence? Yes. She exhaled, long and slow. The kind of breath people take when their internal narrative cracks open. I thought, she stopped again. What? I asked gently. I thought you didn't really see me, she admitted. That landed quietly. Not sharp, not dramatic, just honest. I saw your grades, I said. Your community hours, your financial documents, your essay. Her eyes widened slightly. You read all of that? Yes. The jazz music from the hall drifted faintly into the corner. Soft saxophone notes blending with distant conversations. Ambient, controlled, civil. My essay said I felt unsupported, she said slowly. It did. And you still approved the scholarship's continuation after reading that? Yes. She let out a small, disbelieving laugh. That's wild. No, I replied softly. That's structural fairness. She leaned back against the wall slightly, processing. I wasn't lying in my essay, she said after a moment. I did feel alone. I believe you, I answered. Because truth can exist in layers. Personal feelings, institutional reality, family perception, all different, all valid in their own contexts. She looked down at the plaque again. My caption last night, she murmured. Yes. I said I did it on my own. You did the work on your own, I corrected calmly. The funding structure existed independently. Her lips parted. That's a very specific distinction. Yes. Another reflective line settled inside me. Accuracy protects dignity better than accusation. She rubbed her temple lightly. I feel like everyone is looking at me differently now, she admitted. They are looking at the full context, I replied. Not judgment, not mockery. Context. Through the glass wall, I could see guests still seated, still talking, but occasionally glancing in our direction. Not with scandal, with curiosity. Professional curiosity. They probably think I was claiming credit, she said quietly. You claimed your effort, I responded. Not the funding, she hesitated. But the way I said it, yes, I said gently. That single word held the entire nuance. She swallowed slowly. I genuinely believed the donor was some anonymous foundation stranger, she said. I even told my friends that. I know. My roommate literally said, "You're lucky some rich person picked you," she added with a hollow laugh. Silence followed. Not awkward. Just reflective. I never imagined it was family, she whispered. That was intentional, I said. Her head tilted slightly. You hiding it? Yes. Why? The same question in a different form. This time, I answered more fully. Because the scholarship was built in Grandma Lala's name, I explained. Not in mine. I wanted the focus on legacy, not authorship. Her eyes softened slightly at the mention of Grandma. She used to save those church envelopes, Amara said quietly, with little notes on them. For somebody's future, I finished. Her gaze snapped up. You remember that? I built the scholarship because of that. The realization moved across her face slowly, like puzzle pieces finally aligning after years of misplacement. So this whole thing, she said, voice barely above a whisper, was about Grandma. Yes. Not revenge, not competition. Legacy. She looked down at her hands. And I stood on stage thanking a stranger, she said. You thanked the opportunity, I replied. That's different. She shook her head lightly. No, it feels different now. Another pause. Then she asked quietly, did the foundation remove your anonymity on purpose? Yes, her brows furrowed. Without asking you first? Yes. That's messed up. It was a PR decision, I said calmly, but it triggered a compliance review once I submitted documentation. She blinked. You submitted documents this morning? Yes. What kind? Funding ledgers, charter filings, notarized agreements, board communications. Her eyes widened again. You came prepared? I came accurate. That line settled firmly between us. Across the hall, a staff member adjusted the banner display. The scholarship name remained centered. Lila Mae Grant. Visible, grounded, now contextualized. I keep thinking about last night, she admitted softly. My speech, my caption, everything. That's natural, I said. I wasn't trying to erase you, she repeated. I understand. She searched my face again. You really aren't angry? The question returned, consistent, uncertain, human. I answered with steady honesty. I'm not angry at your effort, I said. I am aware of the narrative gap. Narrative gap, she repeated. Yes. A brief silence passed. Then she asked something different. Did you ever feel resentful growing up? The question was more personal than the previous ones, more vulnerable. Yes, I answered. She didn't flinch. Because I was loud? She asked. Because you were visible, I corrected. She absorbed that slowly. At cookouts, you had the mic, I continued. At church events, you led speeches. In group chats, your voice carried. And you? She asked quietly. I built systems. Her eyes shimmered slightly again. I thought you were just quiet, she said. I was busy. Another quotable thought formed in my mind. Some people perform growth, others engineer it. She let out a soft breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You funded a scholarship at 24, she said. I was arguing about brunch reservations at 24. Different priorities, different paths, same family. I never told anyone because I didn't want the family dynamic to change, I admitted. It definitely just changed, she said quietly. Yes. Not explosively, not dramatically, structurally. She shifted her weight slightly. "So what happens now?" she asked. That question carried more weight than the previous ones. Not about the past, about the future. "The scholarship continues," I said. "Same criteria, same independent review process, same funding schedule." "And me?" she asked softly. I met her gaze directly. "You remain the selected recipient," I answered. Her breath caught slightly. "You're not revoking it? No? Even after everything?" "Yes." A long silence followed. Then her voice dropped to a near whisper. "I don't think I would have handled this as calmly if roles were reversed. That is precisely why roles matter," I said. She stared at me, stunned again. Not by anger, but by restraint. And for the first time since last night, her voice carried something it hadn't before. Not confidence, not performance. The music in the hall softened as guests began shifting toward dessert service. Soft clinks of forks against glass plates. Muted conversations layered over gentle jazz. The atmosphere felt calmer now, but not lighter. Calm after clarity carries a different weight. Amara didn't move right away. She stood near the window with her plaque still in hand, staring at the scholarship banner across the hall like it had suddenly become something unfamiliar. "I keep replaying my speech in my head," she said quietly. The sunlight had shifted slightly, casting longer shadows across the carpet. Afternoon light always reveals more texture, more detail, more truth. "That's normal," I replied. "I said nobody supported me," she continued, voice low. "In front of donors, in front of faculty, in front of you." "Yes." She winced slightly. "That sounds worse out loud?" "It sounds incomplete," I corrected. She exhaled through her nose slowly. "I didn't even think about who created the scholarship," she admitted. "I just saw the acceptance email and thought, miracle." I nodded once. Opportunities often feel like miracles when their infrastructure is invisible. She blinked at that. "Infrastructure," she repeated softly. "Yes." Across the hall, the foundation director spoke quietly with the legal officer. Occasional glances still drifted toward us, but the energy had shifted from spectacle to professional curiosity. Not scandal. Context. "My friends already reposted my speech clip," Amara said, with captions like "self-made queen" and "no help. All hustle." Her grip tightened slightly around the plaque. "I didn't correct them?" I remained calm. "You were operating on the information you had," I said. "That sounds very forgiving," she replied. "It sounds accurate." Silence stretched for a few seconds. Not tense, reflective. Then she asked something carefully. "Did you ever plan to reveal it yourself?" "No." Her head tilted. "Never?" "Not publicly." "Why?" I looked toward the scholarship banner. "Because legacy-centered philanthropy loses sincerity when it becomes personal branding," I answered. She let that sit. "So you were just going to keep funding it quietly forever?" "Yes." "And let people assume it was some anonymous foundation donor?" "Yes." Her eyes widened slightly. "That's a different level of discipline." Another reflective thought settled within me. Not every achievement needs a witness. Some only need continuity. She shifted her stance, leaning lightly against the wall. "I feel like I misunderstood you for years," she said. I didn't rush to deny it. "Misinterpretation is common when observation is shallow," I replied calmly. She let out a soft breath that almost turned into a laugh. "That sounds like something a professor would say." "I studied nonprofit systems," I said. "That explains a lot." She glanced back at the hall again. "My phone has been blowing up since they announced your name," she admitted. "Messages?" I asked. "Yes." "What kind?" She unlocked her phone slowly and showed me the screen. Texts, DMs, notifications stacked in layers. "Friend, wait, your cousin funded it?" Another message. "So you didn't know?" Another. "This is actually wild." She locked the phone again. "I don't even know what to respond," she whispered. "Start with accuracy," I said. She nodded faintly. "That makes sense." A brief pause followed. Then her voice softened. "Can I ask you something, honestly?" "Yes." Did you ever feel overshadowed by me growing up? The question was quieter than before, less defensive, more self-aware. Yes, I answered. She didn't interrupt. At family events, visibility often equated to value, I continued. You were expressive, outgoing, celebrated. And you were? She asked gently. Consistent, I said. She swallowed slowly. I thought you didn't care about attention. I didn't care about attention, I replied. I cared about impact. Her eyes flickered with something deeper now. Understanding. Grandma used to call you the builder, she said suddenly. I blinked once. She said that? I asked. Yeah, Amara nodded. She'd say, Nia builds things quietly while the rest of y'all talk loud. That memory landed differently. Warm, unexpected, grounding. I hadn't known she said that out loud. I thought she only told me that once, I murmured. Amara shook her head. She said it more than once. Silence settled again, but this time it felt softer, less sharp, less defensive, more reflective. I wish I knew it was you, she said quietly. Why? I asked. I would have thanked you properly. You thanked the opportunity, I replied. That was appropriate? She looked down again. No, she said slowly. I thanked a narrative that wasn't fully true. That level of awareness was new, not performative, not defensive, real. I don't want people thinking I lied, she added. You didn't fabricate the scholarship, I said calmly. You misidentified its source. She let out a long breath. That sounds less terrible than what's in my head right now. Across the hall, a foundation staff member approached the banner display and adjusted the lower text panel. Now it read, Lila Mae Grant, founded by Nia Johnson, private registry, clear, simple, documented. Amara noticed it immediately. Her eyes widened as she read the updated panel. They changed the display already, she whispered. Yes. That fast? Institutional corrections move quickly when documentation is verified. She stared at the banner for several seconds. I feel like my whole story just got reframed, she said. Not erased, I corrected. Reframed? She nodded slowly. That word feels more accurate. Another quotable thought formed quietly. Truth does not dismantle effort. It recontextualizes it. She looked back at me. You protected my dignity in your speech, she said suddenly. I protected the integrity of the selection process, I replied. You specifically said I earned it fairly. Because you did. Her eyes shimmered again, but she blinked it back quickly. I expected you to expose me, she admitted. I exposed documentation, I said, not people. That line stayed between us longer than any accusation could have. Guests began standing gradually as the luncheon neared its end, chairs sliding softly, low conversations rising slightly. The director walked past us and gave a small, respectful nod in my direction. Professional acknowledgement, institutional alignment. Amara watched him, then turned back to me. So what happens when the newsletter comes out? She asked. It will list the founding donor and scholarship structure, I said. And my name will still be listed as the recipient? Yes, she hesitated. You're really not changing anything about my award? No. Even though the narrative online is messy now? Yes. Her shoulders lowered slightly, tension easing for the first time. That's bigger than I expected, she admitted. Consistency is part of ethical funding, I said. She studied my face carefully again. You're not doing this to make me feel small, are you? No? Then why does it feel like I'm seeing myself differently now? I paused before answering, because that question deserved precision. Because context changes self-perception, I said gently. She absorbed that in silence. Then, very quietly, she asked, Do you think the family knows yet? Her question lingered in the air longer than the music. Do you think the family knows yet? Outside the tall windows, afternoon light had softened into a muted glow. Shadows stretched across the carpet in long, quiet lines, time moving forward, whether narratives were ready or not. I glanced down at my phone. 17 missed notifications. Family group chat. 48 new messages. Yes, I said calmly. They know. Her lips parted slightly. That fast? The foundation live-streamed the recognition segment, I replied. Her shoulders stiffened. Oh, a single syllable. Heavy, real, unfiltered. I unlocked my phone and opened the group chat. Messages stacked rapidly. Aunt Rochelle. Wait! Naye? Mom, you funded the scholarship. Why didn't you tell us? Cousin Trey. Hold up. This whole time? Then one message sat quietly among the chaos. Grandma's old church friend, Miss Evelyn. Lila May would be proud. I locked the screen again. Not overwhelmed, not emotional. Grounded. Amara rubbed the back of her neck slowly. They're probably dissecting everything I said last night, she murmured. They are processing new context, I corrected. She let out a breath that sounded half like a laugh, half like disbelief. I literally posted self-made under the ceremony photo, she said. Yes. And now it looks like I ignored the donor. You acknowledged the opportunity, I replied, not the infrastructure behind it. She looked at me carefully. You really think in systems, don't you? Yes. A brief silence passed as guests began collecting their bags and exchanging farewells. The luncheon energy was dissolving into departure mode, chairs shifting, soft goodbyes, professional closure. Amara's phone buzzed repeatedly in her hand. She hesitated, then opened it. Her expression changed almost instantly. What? I asked gently. She turned the screen toward me. Her Instagram post from last night was now flooded with new comments. Your cousin funded it? That's wild. So it wasn't a random donor? Still proud of you, but this context is crazy. This makes the story even deeper. Not hateful, not mocking, curious, reframed. I thought I was going to get dragged, she whispered. Public perception often follows verified facts, I said. She scrolled further. One comment stood out, pinned near the top. Dame Foundation official account. We are proud to confirm that the Lila May Grant was founded by Nia Johnson in honor of her grandmother. Recipient selection remained fully independent and merit-based. Institutional clarification. Clean, direct, final. Her shoulders lowered slightly. They didn't make it sound like I lied, she said quietly. Because you didn't, I replied. She locked her phone and stared ahead. I feel embarrassed, she admitted. I didn't dismiss it. Embarrassment is often a response to unexpected perspective shifts, I said. She blinked. You really do talk like a strategist. I operate like one, I answered calmly. Another reflective thought settled inside me. Reputation is not destroyed by truth. It is refined by it. Across the hall, the foundation banner remained unchanged. Lila May Grant, founded by Nia Johnson, private registry, clear attribution, permanent correction. Amara followed my gaze. I keep looking at that banner, she said softly. Yes. It feels surreal seeing your name there. It was always in the registry, I replied, just not publicly displayed. She nodded slowly. Private impact becoming public record, she murmured. Exactly. We walked toward the exit together at a natural pace. Not rushed, not awkward, measured. The hallway outside the luncheon hall was cooler, air conditioning brushing lightly against my skin, footsteps echoing softly along the polished floor. She spoke again, quieter now. Did you ever plan for the family to find out eventually? Yes, I said, but through documentation, not drama. She gave a small nod. That tracks. My phone rang suddenly. Caller ID. Mom? I answered. Hi, Mom. Her voice came through fast, emotional, but controlled. Nia, is this true? The scholarship? The foundation just posted your name? Yes, I said. A long inhale on the other end. You built that in Grandma's name? She asked softly. Yes. Silence followed, not confused, not angry, moved. I wish you told us, she said gently. I wanted the impact to exist before the announcement, I replied. Another pause. That sounds like something your grandmother would have done, Mom said. That line landed deeper than any public applause. We're proud of you, she added quietly. Thank you, I replied. When the call ended, Amara looked at me carefully. "She sounded emotional," she said. "She sounded aligned," I answered. We reached the building's glass exit doors. Sunlight outside was softer now, and tinted slightly gold by the afternoon. People moved along the sidewalk, cars passed, normal life continuing, unaffected by private revelations. Amara stopped just before stepping outside. "I need to ask you one last thing," she said. I turned toward her. "Yes?" She held the plaque closer to her chest. "When you stood up today, and they said your name," she paused, searching for the right words. "Were you trying to make a point to me? A direct question? Personal? Honest? Vulnerable?" "No," I said calmly. She blinked. "Then what were you doing?" I answered without hesitation. "Correcting the record?" She stared at me for a few seconds, processing not just the event, but the intention behind it. "You didn't interrupt my speech last night," she said slowly. "You didn't expose me online. You didn't confront me publicly." "No. But you still revealed the truth." "Yes." "How?" "Through institutional acknowledgement and documented authorship," I replied. Her lips parted slightly. "That's a very precise kind of power." I didn't deny it. "Precision protects everyone involved," I said. A breeze pushed lightly against the glass doors as they opened automatically. Warm air brushed against us as we stepped outside. City noise returned immediately. Traffic, footsteps, distant sirens. Real-world sounds, unfiltered. She looked down at her plaque one more time. "I earned this," she said quietly. "Yes, but the opportunity existed because of you." "Yes," she nodded slowly. "That doesn't make me self-made," she admitted. "It makes you supported by a system you didn't fully see," I replied. She let out a long breath. I think that's the part I needed to understand. Silence followed, but it felt resolved rather than heavy. Then she asked, very softly, "Are you going to change how the scholarship works after this?" The late afternoon air carried a gentle warmth as we stood outside the foundation building. Cars passed in steady rhythms. A bus stopped at the corner. Somewhere nearby, a street musician played soft saxophone notes that drifted through the open space. Her question lingered between us. "Are you going to change how the scholarship works after this?" I adjusted my grip on the plaque slightly. The metal edge was warmer now, no longer cold from the indoor air. Grounded, familiar, earned. "No," I said calmly. She blinked. "No? No changes to the criteria. No changes to the selection process. No changes to the funding schedule." Her shoulders lowered a fraction. "So everything just continues?" "Yes." She looked down at the sidewalk for a moment. "I thought maybe you'd restructure it," she admitted. "Or add some rule about family applicants. Or distance yourself." "I already have a conflict of interest clause," I replied. It functioned exactly as intended. She nodded slowly. "You really built this like a system, not a gesture." "Yes." A reflective thought settled quietly inside me. Sustainable impact is not emotional. It is structural. A light breeze moved through the street, brushing against the hem of my blazer. The city felt normal again, almost indifferent to the narrative shift that had just unfolded. Amara leaned against the metal railing nearby. "I keep thinking about the timeline," she said. "You started this 2 years ago. Quietly, legally, documented." "Yes." "And never once hinted to the family." "Yes." She let out a soft laugh. "That takes a different kind of discipline." "It takes clarity of purpose," I replied. She studied me with a gaze that felt different now. Less assumptive, more observant. "I used to think you were just reserved," she said. "Like you preferred staying out of things." "I preferred building things," I corrected gently. She nodded, absorbing that without resistance. "My speech last night," she began again. "Yes." "I replayed the clip during lunch," she admitted. "And hearing it now, it sounds incomplete. Not false, just incomplete." "That is an accurate assessment," I said. She exhaled slowly. "I think what embarrassed me most wasn't that you funded it," she continued. "It was realizing how much I didn't know about someone in my own family." That honesty carried weight. Not defensive, not performative. Real. I never hid my work, I said. I just never announced it. She gave a small nod. That distinction makes more sense now. My phone buzzed again. Another Foundation email. Subject: Official Registry Update, Lila Mae Grant Attribution Logged. I opened it briefly. Confirmed entry. Donor identity updated in Permanent Institutional Records. Public narrative aligned with documented authorship. Clean, final, archival. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my blazer pocket. It's official now, I said quietly. She looked at me. The registry? Yes. She swallowed slightly. So even years from now, the scholarship will always list you as the founder? Yes. And Grandma's name stays as the title? Yes. Her eyes softened. I think she would have loved that, she said. So do I. We stood in silence for a few seconds as pedestrians walked past us, unaware of the layered history behind our conversation. Then she spoke again, more carefully than before. Can I ask something personal? Yes. Did you ever resent me after last night? Even a little? I considered the question fully before answering. Resentment requires the belief that harm was intentional, I said. She listened closely. You operated on incomplete information, I continued. You did not fabricate the scholarship. You misidentified its origin. She nodded slowly. So in your mind, this wasn't betrayal? No? Then what was it? I answered with steady clarity. A narrative gap. That phrase settled deeply. She looked away toward the street, then back at me. I think I understand something now, she said softly. What? I asked. My whole life, I thought visibility meant value, she admitted. If something wasn't announced, celebrated, or posted, it didn't exist. I didn't interrupt. But you built something real without any of that, she continued. And it existed long before anyone clapped for it. Yes. Her grip tightened gently around her plaque. I stood on that stage thinking I was the main story, she said. You were a key outcome, I replied. But not the origin. No. Another long pause followed. Then she surprised me. I'm going to update my caption, she said. I tilted my head slightly. With what? I asked. The truth, she answered simply. She unlocked her phone, typing slowly. Deliberately, not rushed. After a moment, she turned the screen toward me. New caption draft. I earned this scholarship through hard work, but today I learned it was founded by my cousin in honor of our grandmother. Grateful for both the opportunity and the legacy behind it. I read it once, then looked back at her. That is accurate, I said. She nodded and hit post. No theatrics, no dramatic apology video, just contextual correction. Another quotable thought formed quietly in my mind. Accountability spoken calmly travels farther than defensiveness spoken loudly. She exhaled deeply after posting. That felt better than pretending nothing changed, she admitted. Yes. My friends are already responding, she added, glancing at the notifications. But the tone is different now. Less hype, more respect. Context often matures public perception, I said. She looked at me carefully. You didn't just correct the record today, she said. You protected my dignity while doing it. I protected the integrity of the system, I replied. And that protected me too, she said quietly. That realization seemed to settle something inside her. I think if you had exposed me publicly last night, I would have gotten defensive, she admitted. Probably said something emotional. Probably made it worse. Public confrontation invites reactive narratives, I said. Institutional acknowledgement invites reflective ones. She gave a small, understanding nod. Everything you did was controlled, she observed. Everything I did was documented, I corrected. She smiled faintly at that. Then her expression turned thoughtful again. You know what's wild? She said. What? I asked. I thought the biggest moment of my life was receiving that scholarship on stage, she admitted. But the real turning point was learning where it came from. I didn't respond immediately, because that sentence carried more growth than any apology could. I'm still proud of earning it, she added quickly. You should be, I said. But now I'm also aware of the structure behind it. Yes. She nodded once, firmly this time. And that makes me want to actually live up to it, not just celebrate it. That was the first statement she'd made that pointed forward instead of backward. A quiet shift, subtle, significant. The sun dipped slightly lower, casting warmer light across the sidewalk. I'm keeping the scholarship active indefinitely, I said. Her eyes widened slightly. Every year? She asked. Yes. For students like me? For students who meet the criteria, I clarified. She smiled softly. That sounds exactly like you. Consistent, I replied. She laughed quietly. Yeah, consistent. Another brief silence passed, but this one felt resolved. Not heavy, not tense, complete. She stepped back slightly and held the plaque with renewed steadiness. I'm glad the truth came out the way it did, she said. So am I. No shouting, no drama, no humiliation. No distortion, I added. She nodded. Just correction. Yes. She hesitated one last time before speaking. I don't think I'll ever look at success the same way again, she said. Why? I asked. Because now I know, she replied softly, that sometimes the most powerful support comes from people who never ask for credit. That sentence stayed with me as the city noise continued around us. Cars moving, people walking, life progressing. The scholarship remained intact. The record remained accurate. The legacy remained aligned. And for the first time since the ceremony, the story no longer felt like a confrontation. It felt like a completed record, a quiet system doing exactly what it was designed to do. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.